Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Four Corners of Commentary. I am K Marvel.
You already know it's QS, y'all.
I'm the big stretch.
Track home.
And on today's episode, we are doing heel turns. If you don't know what a heel turn is, or the term heel, eh, um, basically it's when a good guy turns into a bad guy, a hero turns into a villain. I can't think of any superhero who went bad real quick. That's sad. But
Lantern.
Green Lantern, touche.
Yeah. Goku.
But
Goku to Goku Black, maybe. I don't know.
that doesn't count. His body was taken over. Anyways,
Yeah.
Oh boy.
but that's our topic for today. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna mention one, and then we're gonna do honorable mentions, and that's the end of that one. So with that being said, Quiet Storm, QS, what's your pick, sir?
So, I mean, there's so many heel turns as it goes, and some are funny, some are were shocking, some I decided to choose one that could date back to when we were kids. Of course, when we were kids, or some of us were growing up. This one is not I wouldn't say this one deals with a woman, and I wouldn't say that I can't really say, I don't want to say the usual saying, the hero turns into the villain. It more of it was just a series of things that led up to this moment, and probably led to one of the most annoying and actually groundbreaking factions in the Attitude Era. And I have a feeling you all know what I'm going to go with, and I just might put it out. It's the McMahon-Helmsley era.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And of course,
Okay.
and it just makes sense to just go with that one. Now, of course, we can always date this back to, when I say the McMahon-Helmsley era, I'm speaking of when Stephanie McMahon had this little thing going on with Triple H. It was, at the time, she was actually in a union. She was actually she was in a on-screen relationship with Test. They were together. You thought, and Test had proposed to her. They was going to get married. It was a big thing supposed to happen on Monday Night Raw. And then until it came out that, Triple H at the time had came and showed a video showing that I guess it was a time that Triple H and Steph they went out. I guess Steph got too drunk and she was passed out. So then he proceeded to take her to a drive-through church to get married. And
White wedding.
this had then go led on. This is while Steph and Tess were literally in the middle of the ring, about to say their adieus. And that's, of course, that's when Trips came in and, crashed the wedding and revealed that Trips and Steph were already married from that union. And of course, broke Tess' heart, pissed off Vince. And then it just led on to like a whole series of like on-screen, off-screen details. Triple H was it got to a point where then Vince tried to, he wanted to defend his daughter's honor. And he actually went and had a match with Triple H. And, that was it. Of course, everybody knows that Vince was not going to win this. I knew it for the most part. It's admirable as a father that you want to defend your daughter's honor. You want to do.
Damn right you do.
You want to do it. You want to defend your daughter's honor. But we all knew that Vince wasn't going to beat Trips, even though he's the boss. It just wasn't going to work to the point that even though the match was actually fairly entertaining, but then it got to the point, once you saw Trips went and won the match. He did win the match by defeating Vince, especially with the sledgehammer. It made it to Steph was even over Vince's battered and beaten body, thinking trying to protect her dad from getting hit with sledgehammer again. And just when you think that Trips is going to sit here and was actually going to hit Steph with the sledgehammer, instead he grabs her. They both grab each other, and it's a smile, and then you realize that Steph was in on it the whole entire time, and it's just like, wow. And of course, that was probably one of like the greatest commentary from Jim Ross in history, because he made you like really like hate them both. You were just like, whoa, like whole time everybody's literally sitting here like, you know, they're thinking like, oh, Steph's gonna she doesn't want to be married to Trips. They gotta find a way to make this marriage annulled. Whole time, nope. They were in on it. They were in on it. She was that's when she revealed she's a McMahon Helmsley. Hunter's her man, and it led to those two. They really were like running roughshod over both rosters on Raw and even on SmackDown. It was just running roughshod on the whole entire WWF when it was WWF, not WWE at the time. And it just, and I would just say like that's probably I just decided to go with that because, again, it's one of the heel turns that a lot of people don't really like to talk about. I know I could have went with the usual heel turns that we all already know and everybody like knows and loves, but I feel like this is one that's just it's usually overlooked, but that heel turn is what set the tone for probably one of the best heel eras of an entire wrestling federation. Like you really don't see a man and his wife literally basically controlling everything. Like you don't see that. You haven't seen that. You didn't see that for a very long time until it was like reenacted again with the Authority. But that's about it. That's all I got for everyone.
Yeah, I think the funny thing, if my memory serves me right, and Christian, I know you and I was definitely watching it more than the other two gentlemen on our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Q has brought it up, so obviously he was watching it.
I watch it.
But okay, so then excuse me.
I watch it.
But wasn't it? Didn't Trips like drug her? Like, wasn't that the whole thing?
I
No, I think she was drunk. She was
roofied
He
her.
roofied her,
I
really?
think
That's what I
I think
thought.
she got roofied. That's what I was gonna say. And
He gave it to
it's
Bill Cosby. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty much.
not funny. It really is not funny when you think about
I'm
it.
sorry.
It's a
Forgive me. I'm
terrible
sorry.
No, we're not
That-
laughing at the fact that
But it's still hilarious.
it's a story. It's a story. We get it. You know, it's not actually happening, but there's nothing funny about Day Ray. We're not laughing at that.
Yeah.
It's the premise of it. Like, this is one of those storylines that it's like, if this happens today, there would be national outrage about
Yeah,
this storyline.
absolutely.
How could they show somebody actively get
Right.
roofied, like, and be forced? First off, it's funny, like, what we were willing to let go back then, even as, like, logical thinking human beings, because it's like, whoever officiated this wedding has to be the dumbest human being on the face of the earth. It's like, he's literally doing this like, I do, and he's like, I do. And it's like,
wow.
but, like, it's mind-blowing what they were able to do as far as, like, pushing the envelope and getting away with it, like, for lack of a better term. Like, even back then, like, this is some really heavy stuff to, like, use in a storyline. Like, somebody's getting drugged against their will and basically, like, forced to be married to someone else. It's nuts.
I think one of the other things too was that I want to say very short storyline, like just that particular situation, brought out one of the most iconic images of Stephanie McMahon. Because with her being close to the ropes with the, you know what I mean, with the veil and everything, that by far, I think, really set her into being who she became and who she is as an on-screen character. And I think if it wasn't for that, Stephanie might have not been, as a character, might have not been who she is today. And like I said, I think that image in itself, like, really explained or really foreshadowed, who that character was going to become.
And honestly, if anything, if this, I feel like if this moment didn't make you really like hate Triple H like as a character and low key as a person, I really don't know what. Like this was like this would show you that Triple H really as a heel would go to so many lows. It's like you didn't see this from anybody. You didn't see like I said, like after this it was like it's not. I don't even like to take off like from Triple H being like probably one of the greatest heels, but one of the most hated heels ever. Like not only this wedding thing, you can also like see how far he'd go. You think he didn't go lower than this, then you get Katie Vick. It's just like it just shows to show like just that moment, like the fact that he'd be willing to go that far, like date rape, like almost use the date rape value on the boss's daughter, on your owner's daughter. You date raped your owner's daughter to marry it into the family.
And just they didn't press charges.
Not all. No charges.
Freaking
Marriage
video
didn't get
evidence
no.
of it. They didn't press charges.
And it made it look like he just did this because he just wanted to marry into the family. Like this is the ultimate way to just get back at your boss. Like why not? I just dated her to go now, and now she's like, we're stuck. You're stuck with me, and it's just like wow. Like
and it caused mayhem galore.
Complete mayhem galore. It was like you would sit here and wonder, like, well, not to say sit here and wonder because you know for a fact if this happened in this day and era, it wouldn't fly at all. This wouldn't even
not at all.
I think a lot. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I'm sure that the networks that the fans would probably try to get WWE canceled or get that segment completely scrapped. It probably would. I don't know.
Right.
It's just, but it just goes to show like what we allowed back in the Attitude Era would
right. QS they scrapped less. So
yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
On that note, Striker Dragoon, sir, you are next. What is your heel turn of the evening?
Okay.
I think I know what it is.
Do you know what it is? Did my shirt give it away? Because ladies and gentlemen, it is not Daniel Bryan. It is definitely not Daniel Bryan.
Oh, thank God.
This was definitely a pump fake on my part. It's not Daniel Bryan. My heel turn is actually a story of brotherhood, a story of friendship, and it is one of the most dastardly heel turns of recent history. I'm gonna talk about Dean Ambrose turning on Seth Rollins the night, if not a week after. I'm not sure. I remember it was the same night or the week. The same night. Okay.
Night.
It was the same
night. The main event.
Dean Ambrose turns on Seth Rollins the same night that Roman Reigns announces that he has leukemia and is leaving WWE. By far, one of, I kid you not, I was calling, I believe, if you could ask Christian and sorry, you could ask Stretch and QS about this. I was basically calling that heel turn. I was calling that heel turn for weeks because I said it would be crazy and messed up if they actually have this man turn on the night that Roman Reigns left. And to me, you had this crazy buildup of the Shield coming back. Then you have Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre just raising complete hell. And by far beating this man senseless to the point where they had him questioning himself about why he's a third leg in the Shield when he could really be the number one guy. And you see the seeds were being planted left and right. You know, no one expected Roman Reigns to be leaving for leukemia. Nobody expected that. And I think just harping on the emotions, just playing, you know, with the emotional strings of everybody in that crowd that night. I look at one key moment during that whole beatdown where I think Rollins got thrown into the announcers area, and Dean Ambrose comes over and he's beating the crap out of him, and you see this black kid in the background. And he's like, why? Why are you doing this? Why? You see such emotion out of the kid. And it's just moments like these that make great heel turns because nobody was expecting it. You know, and to have it happen on a crazy night such as that, I think just it did exactly what it was supposed to. But let's speak about just his heel run. His heel run was more so hilarious than anything. I don't think it was actually, there wasn't much you could say about the heel run. I think once he ended up losing to EC3 clean that one time, and I think he was on a streak. I I have to. I'm just holding the mic just in case it you don't pick up on the voice. So
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, just to have EC3 just cleanly beat him, and the man was on a good streak if I remember correctly. He was on a good streak, and his EC3 just beat him just outright cleanly, randomly. I think wasn't on his debut. I'm not too sure if it was the debut, but the heel run wasn't as great as the heel turn itself, but definitely should be one heel turn that is remembered in wrestling history.
Yeah, it was definitely impactful. I mean, excuse me. I don't really remember the. There's been a lot. Stretch and I was speaking earlier, and I was saying that heel turns and face turns, bad guys are good guys, are kind of like people's opinions. It happens quite often,
Mhm.
and there are very few that I feel like pull on the heartstrings as much as that one. Um, yeah, that was very, very shocking. And Striker, to your point, I mean, you got to remember when that happened, they beat didn't they beat Ziggler and McIntyre for the Raw
Yeah,
Tag Team Championships,
they
That
and
same
did.
then
night.
boom, dirty deeds. So yeah, that was crazy.
And then if
That
I
was
remember
crazy.
correctly, Rollins had defended the titles by himself at one point, and I think he lost.
And it
Correct
might
me
have
if
been a
I'm
week or
wrong.
two after that. Yeah.
Right. But I know along the run he ended up getting the Intercontinental Championship if he didn't have it already.
Yep.
So the heel turn itself was amazing. The run
Right.
not so much, but we know
Right.
what happened behind the scenes
I
in
think
regards to that.
I think it was ill-fated from the start because you could see the uncomfortableness in which some of the things he had to say as a heel to get heat. Like
Yep.
I remember the line that he meant, like they were referring to Roman Reigns when he said, something along the lines is, get what you deserve in this world,
Yep.
referring to, his then medical status at the time. And
Yeah.
Dean is since Dean, excuse me, John Moxley has since then spoken out, just how uncomfortable it was for him to have to say something like that about somebody that is his friend, somebody he respects so much, in Roman Reigns.
Someone
It
someone
goes to
he
show
views
you,
as a brother.
yeah, it goes to show you, like, sometimes even if you're given, I think, the worst character in the world, if you feel that energy of the character and you believe it, you can make it work. Like this is one of those, it's way better on paper, the idea, but the execution of it, he just didn't. I'm not saying that any of the impetus isn't on WWE for not recognizing the situation either, but at the end of the day, I feel like John never necessarily felt the energy of that character in any way, shape, or form. Plus, they had him allowed to do a lot of dumb shit after that as well. Plus,
Right.
never
I
really
think
got on the ball. He never got really rolling after the initial turn.
Exactly.
yeah, I think unfortunately because of how everything was set out, Dean as John Moxley now, but at the time he was Dean as a heel, yeah, like unfortunately in the end his heel run was just it wasn't. You say it's hilarious. I would just say it was. I guess it's okay to say it was just lackluster. It just wasn't.
Mhm.
As Stretch said, it was better to see Dean as a heel on paper. Him turning, that was
Right.
like a moment, but then after he had like beat Rollins clean, it was just to the point where it's just like, okay, that's it.
It was
This
yeah. Once your heart isn't into something, and I can and we can all speak about that. And I
right.
think I think every single solitary person on this planet can speak about that. Once your heart isn't into something,
Yeah.
it shows, especially when it's on television live. It shows, and he made the best of what he could, but you know, speaking with Striker, yeah, like I said earlier, the initial aspect of the turn should be remembered
Mhm.
as a
Yeah,
impactful heel
Hmm.
turn.
absolutely.
So I guess it's on me. uh, so I mean, I'm not shy to say that I completely screwed this episode up for myself. Um, uh, and when we get into that
Metaphorically.
topic, I will mention it. But there are three, you know, once like you had said earlier, there are moments that are obvious. You know, I'm going to mention one because I'm pretty sure none of us are going to mention it because it is that obvious. Hulk Hogan. That is the most obvious heel turn, probably the most impactful heel turn in wrestling history. But with that being said, and this, like I said, this is very difficult for me because the three I had to think up was very quick and right before we did we started recording. Um, I will go with WrestleMania 17, one of the greatest matches of all time. My man Stone Cold.
Yep.
Uh, so leading up to WrestleMania 17, we all know that The Rock and Stone Cold. By the way, The Rock, if you don't know, if you haven't listened to the initial our intro episode, episode 1, he's my favorite wrestler. I could have went with him. Anyways, um, uh, it was we know Stone Cold beat The Rock at WrestleMania 15. It was one of those situations where, you know, we all remember, and if you don't remember, please YouTube it because it is a very impactful promo, dialogue even, between Jim Ross, The Rock, and Stone Cold. But you know, Stone Cold said, "I need to beat you." That need turned into something that people never thought would happen.
Yeah.
The match is going. Everybody is into it. I remember watching it live. I'm pretty sure these gentlemen remember watching it live. And it was such a crazy match that once you saw Vince McMahon coming down that long, long WrestleMania 17 ramp, first off, you're thinking, what is going on? Because both The Rock and Stone Cold were faces. So you're like, oh, well, we already know The Rock went corporate before. Could he do it again? What's happening in this situation? The last thing anybody expected was that Vince McMahon was going to help Stone Cold.
Mm.
Stone Cold, if I'm not mistaken, Vince McMahon hit Rock with a chair.
He did.
Uh,
Yeah.
Stone Cold went for the pin. Rock kicked out. Hit him with a stunner. Went for the pin. Rock kicked out, and proceeded. And excuse my language. I do have a daughter. I'm trying to be PG when it comes to this podcast, but proceeded to beat his ever loving ass with that chair, and it was over. And it was almost as bad as The Rock beating Mick Foley over and over and over with that chair. And you're just like, you're looking and you're like, what is happening? Your heart, your mind, you don't know how to feel. Like, this is Stone Cold. This is possibly, arguably, one of the biggest stars in wrestling history. And you know his feud with Mr. McMahon. He does not like Vince
Mhm.
whatsoever from day one. And you watch him beat and beat and beat The Rock. And you know, he goes for that pin and it's 1, 2, 3. And the entire crowd was in awe. You know, his music is blazing, lights are everywhere. It was, and I think, me personally, what made it better was that it was the theme music with the lyrics. I think that also I think if it was just his normal music, it wouldn't be as impactful. And once again, if y'all know me, I'm an entrance guy, I'm a theme guy, I'm a pyro guy, because that is what you first see. So when you see Stone Cold coming out for WrestleMania 17, and you see The Rock coming out for WrestleMania 17, by the way, The Rock was WWE champion. Um,
Mm.
so actually, if I'm not mistaken, Stone Cold won the Royal Rumble that year, and The Rock beat Kurt Angle for the WWE champion at what
Yep.
was that? That wasn't Backlash. That was
Way out.
No Way
It
Out.
was
Thank
way
you.
out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so that was I think Stone Cold turning, no matter if you liked it or hated it, because there was a lot that came out after that. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't the invasion angle pretty much right after that? Because they
Yeah,
suspended The
same
Rock.
year.
Yeah,
Same
Right?
same.
He suspended The Rock, then the invasion happened, and then all of that. But I think that was probably one of the most shocking heel turns to ever occur. Like I said, it's Stone Cold. Stone Cold was DTA, don't trust anybody, and he went ahead and trusted. And Troy brought this up. Excuse me, Stryker brought this up not too long ago. Uh, Jim Ross has one of the best sound bites when it comes. I mean, Jim Ross is the greatest of all time, but
Yep.
one of the best sound bites ever, and that's Stone Cold is shaking hands with the devil himself, with Satan himself,
Hmm.
and
It
like I
was.
said, I think that in itself was probably, at least to me, one of the biggest, most impactful, most surprising heel turns of all time.
Agreed.
Preach.
I think in retrospect, a lot of people don't give it the credit that it's easy to say, like, hindsight is 2020. At the time, within the moment, it's like basically what Jim Ross said. Like, his hero is shaking hands with the devil himself. It's like you never necessarily thought you'd see that moment, but it's like, it was mind blowing at the time.
Right.
Sometimes, like watching older shows, like I always ask or implore people rather, like put themselves in the time frame of the moment, understand that it's a different time and like how big of a star somebody may have been or how good of a face somebody may have been. Austin was like, everybody identified with Austin, especially if you hated your boss. So it's like to see him align with Vince McMahon was like a blow, like it's like getting stabbed directly in the chest.
And it's like what just made it crazier. It was just like we were so, I guess at the time, especially all of us as kids growing up, we were just so used to just Austin just being like, the guy that he comes in, he says what's on his mind, he gives a stunner, stuns somebody, opens up cans of beer, claps it in the air, drinks and wakes all the beer like crazy. Like, a lot of times everybody can now say, like, if you probably grew up loving beer, you probably ended up loving beer because you saw Stone Cold Steve Austin drinking beer. So you just automatically related with him. As you said, Stretch, you were so used to him as a hero. So then now see him all of a sudden align with Mr. McMahon himself, it was like a shot to the gut because it's just like you really couldn't believe it. But then not for nothing, Austin as a heel was also pretty hilarious because that led some great
That
segments with
I,
Austin as a heel. So it was actually
right.
I
think right. I think that heel turn brought out the comedic aspect of Stone Cold, and I
Hmm.
mean, if you remember it,
especially when the invasion angle happened, like which
oh
is
yeah,
like
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, and we could have turned it at heel turn, but I didn't want to. I feel like the other one was a lot more
I
impactful. But I mean, even Stone Cold, wanting to give hugs and playing the guitar and messing around with Kurt Angle back and forth. I mean, there was really just so much that happened because of that heel turn. And ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking about the evasion angle sometime in the future because I do think that is a very important angle. Regardless if you liked it or not, I digress. But Like I said, I think because of that heel turn, you got so much more out of Stone Cold Steve Austin as a person, as a character, as as his impact in the WWF/E. It was like I said, I think there are very few, a la Hogan, that was as impactful as Stone Cold turning.
Hmm.
And last but not not least, Stretch. Please
Yeah.
tell us.
So in researching this topic, I didn't want to talk about the big two, and me and Marvel had this discussion before we got the ball on recording. The big two is obviously Hogan turning and Shawn Michaels turning, super kicking Marty Jannetty and throwing him through the barbershop window. Jannetty's got more important things to worry about now in case you guys have to be keeping up with wrestling news. So I don't want to put any more higher profile on Marty Jannetty than he's going to get tonight.
Ooh,
Cops in Georgia are
Boy.
probably knocking on his door right now.
Ooh.
Be that as it may. My heel turn is from 1994. And I want to preface by saying that a lot of what the WWE does is influenced by other sports.
Yep.
So in boxing at the time, I'm a huge boxing fan as well. George Foreman, by knocking out Michael Moore, became, if I'm not mistaken, I think the record still stands. He is the oldest person to win a portion of the Boxing World Heavyweight Championship, or the Undisputed Boxing Heavyweight Championship. WWE in 1994, not even 94, in 1992 started with the comeback of Bob Backlund, in which he in December of 92, he worked his ass off in the 93 Rumble. He set the then record of over an hour and a minute in the 93 Rumble, but then he kind of languished in obscurity, up until the time of the summer of 94. So the summer of 94, give you a preface, Bret Hart is the champion again. He defeats Yokozuna at WrestleMania. He, defends his belt. On pay-per-view, he defeated his brother. Of course, my phone would ring during the
Hello? Jesus?
cast. Please excuse me. This is a live show, ladies and gentlemen.
At least laugh at us.
Tell you.
Oh boy.
Well, let's talk about something else for now.
I'm so Marty Jannetty.
No, I tease. Ladies and gentlemen, just give us 1 second.
Yeah, so summer of 94, Backlund languished in obscurity. Bret Hart is the WWF champion. He recently defeated Yokozuna in April of 94 to win the WWF championship, then WWE championship, WrestleMania 10. Defeats Owen Hart at SummerSlam to retain his championship in one of the greatest steel cage matches you'll ever see. So that leads into Bob Backlund on an episode of WWF Superstars. Saturday morning, I remember where I was when I watched this, because Backlund, this is like Backlund's last hurrah. Like, this is his last chance. And Backlund was campaigning and doing promos like, look, I don't have too much longer in this game. I just want to reach out to Bret Hart to get one more shot at winning the WWF championship. And Bret, being the fighting champion he was, gave Bob his shot, They have a pretty great match on Superstars, nice standard technical match for something, that's Bret's type of opponent, somebody that's been around the block, has an experience factor, somebody that's a good technical wrestler as he is. Bob Backlund, for those who don't know, is a former collegiate All-American and from Princeton, Minnesota. He's a legit athlete. Like Bob, to this day, is probably in a lot better shape than a lot of people. But Bob thinks he has the match won with a small package. Bret kicks out. Bret pins Backlund as he's celebrating. He doesn't necessarily realize it, and he wins the match. So you think the fanfare at that point should be over. Bret wins the match. He celebrates with the belt, comes over and he shakes Bob's hand. Bob shakes his hand. He celebrates with the belt some more. Bob's still in the ring. So Bret stops celebrating and, goes to shake Bob's hand again, but Bob doesn't reciprocate. So sticks his hand out, and Bob looks at him funny and smacks Bret directly across the face. And absolutely shocking, because Bob was never a heel before.
Yep.
Bob Backlund, for those who don't know, was before the Hulkamania as we know it in the WWF. He was the guy and he always exemplified, like, you know, sportsmanship and fair play. The heels used to call him Howdy Doody for how clean cut he was. Bob never turned heel before in front of such a large audience. So he slaps Brett and slaps on what they did an excellent job of after this is building up as a devastating submission hold, the crossface chicken wing. And Jim Ross, ironically, is doing commentary for this match, and he calls it, he's got him in a chicken wing. And, like, you see Brett, like, rising in pain, and Bob is screaming as he's putting this hold on Brett. And, like, you just see, like, officials come in there and he, like, to try to get Bob off of him. And then when Bob releases the hold, he looks at his hands. Like, he couldn't believe what he just did. He snapped. That was like the first instance of the WWE using that type of a term when somebody goes absolutely nuts on their opponent, the term snapping on their opponent. And from that build up to what they led up, all this led up to a match at Survivor Series, a submission match, which again, if you've never seen that match, it's worth a watch. It's one of the better technical matches you'll ever see. But it also has another great heel moment from Owen Hart, who managed to turn face during the end and then turn heel right back after because he convinced his parents to get involved in the finish of the match. I don't want to spoil it for nobody who's seen it, who hasn't seen it. But this all leads up to that match, and Bob is literally going crazy, putting the crossface chicken wing on anybody he can get his hands on. He did it to his old manager, Arnold Skolin, because they managed to tie this back into the point where Bob was the champion, but he lost to the Iron Sheik. And Arnold Skolin had to throw the towel in for Bob. Bob never really submitted, so he never felt like he lost the championship. So he puts the hold on Arnold Skolin. He starts coming to the ring with the white towel, which is supposed to be the same towel Arnold Skolin threw in. Like, he put it on Lex Luger, who was like the second biggest baby face at the time, the 1-2-3 Kid, Duke the Dumpster Drozy. Anybody you can think of that was a face during that time got put into crossface chicken, basically. And it leads up to this great match at Survivor Series 94, you know, in which, well, I hate to spoil, like, the absolute ending of it. Bob does win this match, you know, and Bob, like, gets to parade around with the championship. And Vince has this great line, like, this is the face of the new generation. I shudder to think, like, unfortunately, Bob loses the championship, like, 3 days later or something like that to Diesel in 8 seconds. But it was
very quick.
It was a very quick run. But Bob, that was like Bob's last hurrah, and I'm very glad they gave it to Bob. Bob, for that time, even though he was 43 years old in age, which is considered, it's not really that old. Even now, there's guys still performing that are in their 40s now. But back then, that was considered
50s.
old.
It's like, you know? It's like basketball years. You know, 43 back then was like 80.
Right, like, he should not be, like, they're like approaching him like, hey, pal, do you want to be an agent? Like, he's not supposed to be in the ring at that point. And it's like, Bob got the most out of his run. And he played his character so well for being a psycho.
Stretch, I have a question for you, since you are the wrestling encyclopedia that we know and love. Ooh, that's your new nickname. But was that one of the first submission matches in WWE/F history?
Not the first. I do remember Rugged Ronnie Garvin and Greg Valentine at the 1990 Royal Rumble, but it's one of the first of that magnitude in which, like I mentioned earlier, you know, they played up to the fact that Bob never really submitted to the Iron Sheik, and that was in 1983. So they had to throw in the towel. So it was a submission match in which, in order to lose the match, your designated corner person had to throw in the towel. So Owen Hart was a designated corner person for Bob Backlund, and the British Bulldog was a designated corner person for Bret Hart. Loser of the match, his corner person had to throw in the towel. But anybody who's not seen that match, please watch that match. It is a great match, and Owen Hart really does a great job at the end of the match.
All right, so on that point, what we're going to do really quick, I know we usually go into honorable mentions, and then it becomes another 3-hour-long show. But we're just going to mention 2 other heel turns that we loved and or hated, whatever the case may be, impactful. Let's say it like that. Stretch, go ahead. You can start.
Well, I have 2. Of course, he did say 2. So my first one is heel Jake Roberts in 1991, suckering in the Ultimate Warrior. Trust
Amazing.
Me, 2 words. His new theme. Everything about heel Jake Roberts after that point, he is the most deplorable human being in WWE history. My second one is Eddie Guerrero turning on Rey Mysterio.
Yes.
The promo. The story is that Eddie couldn't beat Rey. They were tag team champions. They wrestled at WrestleMania. He couldn't beat him. He couldn't beat him on SmackDown. They wrestled again. He couldn't beat him. And it
Couldn't beat him in WCW.
Right. Couldn't beat him in WCW either. Right. But it drove Eddie nuts to the point where he attacked Rey. And he has this great promo the week after he attacked Rey. First off, he did like this hanging delayed like suplex onto the stairs that just looks nasty. Like he beat him up so badly, he rips his mask, he busts him open. But the promo that he has next week, he has the same mask that he ripped up from Mysterio, and he's like talking to it and yelling at it. It's like, do you think that makes me happy? Why did you make me do that? It is some of the best promo work I've ever seen from Eddie Guerrero.
One of the best promos, especially when it comes to innovation, because think of so many promos when it comes to wrestlers with mask and like ripped off and wrestlers holding on to said mask. Sorry, gentlemen, I have to go next. I just because if I don't, it's gonna go bye-bye. Number one is Jericho. Granted, we know Jericho is very back and forth, but I have to point out him and Shawn Michaels.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, putting Shawn through the TV, and what I could be wrong, but I think that's the moment that messed up one of Shawn's eyes like permanently.
That was the
and then him punching his wife on accident and them continuing the story. I mean, you have to give credit to Shawn and his wife for going through. It's just show business. But the Jericho that came out from that, the people hated him because he started speaking more intelligent. I knew what a troglodyte was. What, 16 maybe? I mean, what was that? Early mid 2000s ish.
Yeah.
Right.
Same with Backlund, except Jericho used his words correctly.
Right. Exactly. I mean, there that has to be one of the best heel turns. I personally think. Excuse me. And the other one, I was gonna go with The Rock. Once again, it was really just him speaking his mind and becoming who he became. Excuse me. But no, not even before he went Hollywood. The initial Nation Rock.
Okay.
I think the Rock, the one that made. You know what? I'm just gonna go with The Rock. F it. I mean, you have to think about it. As we all know, The Rock was this smiley, lovey face. I'll do whatever, and I'm pretty sure he was Intercontinental Champion as Rocky Maivia. But once he let, whatever the case may be, and he came back, and they just let him talk after Rocky dies, and I mean, without that transformation. Without letting him speak his mind, you wouldn't have the superstar that you have today. The action star, the biggest, one of the biggest movie stars, really of all time, that you have today. And I know I said two, but I'm gonna go with one more. And I'm sorry, gentlemen, CM Punk. I mean, him. Mainly when he turned, and mainly his situation with Jeff Hardy. Him going to the alcohol, him going to the drug abuse, him speaking about all of that because he was straight edge, and him creating a straight edge society. I mean, I think, like I said, I think that was also another true turning point for CM Punk, and I think it should never be forgotten, because that is also one of those moments who made CM Punk the legend, really, who he is today. Striker, you got something?
Well, I have two. I could probably do three, but I'm just gonna do two. Crap, I forgot one. But I'll mention, since I did Dean already, we'll do Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins' turn was actually really. I mean, Dean, I think Dean was the more malicious one out of, the two of them. But Seth's was so well placed because the Shield is running high. The Shield's, trying to do everything together. They're trying to basically take down the Authority. And then, boom, right in Roman Reigns' back is a chair. Right in his back. And, I just watched it recently. You see Roman Reigns fall into like the bottom rope. I think he was hanging off the bottom rope at that point, and he's selling like the pain. And it's like the man has a vest on. How are you in pain from it? But you think of the shock, and then if your face was turned and shocked, you look over to Dean Ambrose at the time with John Moxley, and you're seeing his face, and he's like, "What did you do? What are you doing?" And
he dropped his jaw.
It's just crazy. And then we get to, since you want to mention Chris Jericho,
Sorry.
why don't we talk about Kevin Owens?
Yes.
You can't mention Chris Jericho and not mentioning Kevin Owens in the Festival of Friendship.
I have a little bit of a reservation about that because it's not really a heel turn. Kevin Owens is already a heel.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Anything was a face turn that made him more hated.
Exactly. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
He was already a bad guy.
Okay. So,
still amazing.
You know what? So you know what? Then if we're having doubts about that one, then we'll do KO versus Sami Zayn. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Just that simple.
You got it.
That's simple.
Yeah.
I hate Kevin Owens.
And on top of that, Stryker has gone through this on a previous episode, and I mean, we already know.
Yeah, don't gotta go any further.
Quiet Storm, sir. Please end us out with this last pick.
Honestly, well, the only honorary mentions that I would have just went with that were on my list is you already did bring up The Rock and CM Punk, but I would have brought up Rock and CM Punk for two different moments. Obviously, for The Rock, the greatest heel turn for him is him being the corporate champion.
Yeah.
Yep. When he became the People's Corporation, like him joining the corporate, The Rock joining the corporate.
Absolutely.
That's definitely one. Another version of the corporation that you'd have to bring up is Triple H single-handedly excommunicating all of DX, and I'm just meaning Triple H pedigreeing when he pedigreed X-Pac just to like show that he's completely done with DX for him finally aligning himself with the corporation. And my only other honorary mention for CM Punk is obviously on Raw 1000 when of course, and it was within good reason, even though it wasn't within good reason, being is that CM Punk was the champion, but everybody was more inclined to look at John Cena and The Rock. And it's just, again, who wouldn't really want to end up just being a heel? Because you're literally around these two. You're around John Cena and The Rock. These are clearly two people that are not the champion. They're not in the main event. So why are we going to so why was like we just forgot about the WWE champion on the brand on Monday Night Raw? So, and then of course, when CM Punk did turn heel that night on Raw 1000, it ended up him actually having him as a heel was actually excellent, because that led on to him having probably that longest reign, that 434-day reign as WWE champion of the modern era. Like nobody could actually. That's what made him almost solidify him as the best in the world. And then later on, him aligning himself with Paul Heyman, it just made it even better. So that's about it. That's all I got.
And we will be talking about the Summer of Punk sometime in the future also, because that was epic. Regardless of how you might think. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in once again to another episode. We really appreciate it, and we're gonna do things a little different with this ending. So QS, can you please tell these people where they can follow you, sir?
Like always, you guys can all follow me on, of course, my Twitter handle is the same thing as Forever Thiefin. Follow it on Twitter and also on Instagram, like I said, I usually like to speak on social justice, hood comedies, but I also really am getting back to tapping in and talking about mental health. Again, like, if anybody needs something to talk about or on that level or just needs to vent, I am always here, same way how I'm here to speak to if you really need to. Follow us on the Council of Commentary. That's pretty much about it. We're open Facebook group. We're open. We like to talk about all things wrestling or anything that has to deal with, like, the not in the entertainment aspect, but in the comic book world on the sidebar. Like I said, if you want to like to see more of what we can do, just follow us there. Follow me on my handle. Thank you everybody as always for tuning in. It's always appreciated. It does not go without question. Doesn't go unnoticed. That's about it, guys.
Stretch.
You can follow me on Instagram. That is George Sapio. You should be able to see it right next to my name. That is JADORESAPIO. And I haven't misspelled, as you see, yes, I haven't misspelled there, but I was able to spell it correctly as I said it out loud.
Striker.
All can't be winners, folks.
Hey, listen.
But you can also see me probably in the Council of Commentary Facebook group, and that is also my phone ringing. So I will leave it at that. You guys have a lovely night.
Striker, go ahead, man.
Oh man. Well, just follow me at Striker Dragoon on Twitter. And also
Get your Twitch.
we can
Don't forget your Twitch.
Oh yeah, it's my Twitter handle and also my Twitch at Striker Dragoon as well. Lead us out, Mr. Marvel.
And as always, y'all can follow me at Mr. Marvel 87. My handle is also wrong on here. But you can follow that on Instagram and Twitter. Once again, you can always follow the Council of Commentary on Facebook and Instagram. CO, capital letters, Council, Commentary, after on Twitter. And once again, we thank you for listening and tuning in. This has been the Four Corners of Commentary. We appreciate it. We love you. And we have a lot more coming up. Thank you, everyone, and have a good one.
Good one, y'all.